My name is Nick Champlin from PromotedPawn.com. We've got PS90s in their boxes here. You can see one box is a little smaller. The very first run of PS90s came in this smaller box. If you think you might have a first run PS90, one way you might tell is the box won't have this slit. Older box doesn't have the slit. Newer box does. Alright, a lot of things will come in here. You got your manual and lock and all that, but I'm going to focus first off on the magazine. As far as I know, all PS90s originally are shipped with a 30-round magazine. Most people, as soon as they get them, they take their 30-round magazine and turn it into a 50-rounder. You can pay someone $8 for a little kit to do it, or you can do it very simply by yourself. I'll show you how that works. You press this detent down. This top piece slides off. This comes up. There's no need to take it apart more than this. If you do, you might mess up the little followers in there, and sometimes they're hard to realign. So just leave it this far disassembled. Take a hacksaw, cut right here, so all you're left with is this piece. Discard everything from here to there. And that's all it takes to convert a 30-rounder to a 50-rounder. Now, a lot of PS90s on the market are coming with more than one magazine, because the original owner was stockpiling magazines. And there is a difference between magazines, and I'll show you how to tell the difference here. Here's an example. This is the original FN brand magazine, and this is a Korean magazine, and they look very, very similar. But one way you can tell them apart is the FN mags have a kind of more funky looking, little rougher injection spot right here. The Korean mag, it's more subtle. Now the difference performance-wise between these, the FN mags are awesome. The Korean mags have trouble feeding with the slightly longer hollow point looking rounds. The Korean mags will work fine for the blue tip rounds, but the ones that look hollow point often get caught up. So, buyer beware. Now, there's basically two different models of PS90. Here we have the tri-rail. This is a discontinued model, so it's going to fetch a higher price. I'd say a very good price for this today would be $1,600 for a new one. That would be a good price. And the way to tell the tri-rail, it has a Picatinny rail built into the upper receiver, or what FN calls the barrel group. There's actually only one receiver, and this is it. There's no lower receiver, there's just the stock. In any case, the tri-rail, here it is, with its built-in Picatinny rail. The other version you'll see has been called USG or the standard model, depending on what they have mounted in this area here. This was the first version offered by FN, and it originally came most often with a black ring sight, or with a white ring sight, which this is an example of here. This one has installed in it the black ring sight, which is much more desirable. If you see a PS90 with this might add $500, $600 to the value, because this is a really neat optic. It's actually my favorite way to run a PS90 would be with this optic here. Its little brother made out of plastic, the white ring sight. Most people replace this because it's really not very useful in all lighting conditions. Nowadays, the PS90s being offered come with a Picatinny rail built into this spot. And again, a lot of people, it's kind of clunky and stupid, and they end up putting something else here. Now, the next question is, is the weapon new or used? How used is it, you know? One of the best ways we can tell is by getting into the trigger pack, which you do by pressing the button, sliding this and the bolt both forward, use gravity to help the bolt get down. Then you can slide off the butt plate. I didn't even have on there, but then this comes off. And you can take the trigger pack out the back. Most sign of wear will happen right here on the front of the trigger pack, where spent shells come up and nick and scar this area here. This one's maybe been shot 10 times because it only has 2 little nicks, but if the weapon's been used a lot, this area will show a lot of wear. One way you can protect against that wear, if you have a PS90, would be to cover this area with Velcro. A lot of people do that. Now another sign of wear or spot of wear is right here. This button starts out with a nice black finish, but as this action happens over and over again, that finish starts to get worn off. Sometimes you see paint chips up in this area here from the magazine being slammed in and out. And then also you're wanting to look at the bore and make sure it's not messed up or anything. But those are your major signs of wear. Another thing that someone may have done, originally you could only get the PS90s in this green color. People wanted theirs to look black, so they take it and dye it in RIT dye. If it's been dyed in the RIT dye, you might notice that the screws inside there are rusty, or if you were to take it apart, you might see like salt stains inside the stock. That's just something you might come across. Now again, I told you about the small box being for like first run PS90s. There's also another way, aside from low serial numbers, to tell you have a really early PS90, and that's in the muzzle here. Let me put these side by side. This one is a very early model, and here's a more recent version. You can see that the original is a smooth shroud before the flash hider here, and here the shroud, barrel shroud, has these 2 cuts in it, and that's the difference there. Now that I'm on the subject of new versus old, different models that came out over time, that's most seen in the configuration of the trigger pack here. This one has a black hammer, which is desirable and means it's earlier. Earlier had black hammer, and just the fact that it has a black hammer might add $500 to the value of the weapon. If this trigger pack has a black body instead of gray like this, then it's very valuable and very rare. There is only a handful of ones with a black body because only the very, very first ones were black. They had a black hammer. As time goes on, the hammer switches configuration and turns a gray color. That's what you'll see most often. There's other small differences in these packs as time has gone on. The one thing I would avoid, I found that if this pin here is black instead of silver, then the internals are a little rougher and not as smooth. You might want to avoid, if you have a chance, a trigger pack where this pin, which I'm pointing at here, that guy is black. And that may sum it up, aside from all the accessories that may be on the weapon, which maybe I'll cover in another video. Thank you.